I joked about destiny long before I ever believed in it, but nothing prepared me for the moment I casually looked into a stranger's eyes on a quiet evening and said something I thought would be forgotten the next second. I joked, "Will you marry me on our first date?" It was meant to tease, nothing more, but the way her smile softened, the way her gaze didn't tremble, the way her breath carried warmth instead of surprise, those things stayed with me forever. And when she replied with that gentle, almost whispered line, "I hope you keep that promise," something inside me shifted, like the universe had paused to listen. That single moment, born out of laughter, planted a seed that would grow into the most beautiful and painful truth of my life. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the magic of unexpected connections, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to channel name to support stories like this. From the very beginning, she wasn't just another person I met, she was a storm wrapped in calmness, a battle scar hidden behind grace. Her name was Ayla, a woman who carried warmth like a lantern and sadness like a shadow that followed her quietly. I first met her in a small cafe that smelled of roasted beans and rain on concrete. She was sitting alone, shoulders slightly dropped as if the world had just weighed down on her. I don't know why I sat beside her, why I made that stupid marriage joke, or why she took it seriously enough to respond with hope instead of irritation. But sometimes stories begin without logic, sometimes all we need is a single heartbeat of courage and a stranger willing to listen. Our first date happened a week later, and it was nothing grand. We didn't go to fancy places or pretend to be perfect. We walked through a crowded market, shared street food, wandered into a bookstore, and talked about things that didn't make sense to anyone but us. She told me she loved secondhand books because they carried pieces of people she would never meet. I told her I feared losing people I cared about long before they ever left. And somewhere between the laughter, the quiet steps, and her fingers brushing against mine accidentally, I felt something grow inside me, not love exactly, but the undeniable beginning of it. But life isn't kind just because you find someone worth loving. Sometimes it tests you first. Ayla carried a sadness she never wanted to talk about. In the middle of conversations, her smile would fade out like music losing volume. Sometimes she looked at me as if she wanted to tell me something but couldn't. There were days she texted me endlessly, filling my phone with warmth, and there were days she disappeared behind silence. I tried not to push, thinking everyone heals at their own pace, but the more I cared, the more fear crept in, fear that I would lose her without ever knowing why. Weeks passed, and our bond deepened. We weren't lovers yet, not officially, but we existed somewhere between friendship and forever, too close to be casual, too scared to define it. Each time she smiled, I felt like I had done something meaningful. Each time she cried quietly, pretending she wasn't, my heart broke a little. I realized that loving someone is not just holding their hand during sunny moments, it's learning to stay even when storms hit without warning. One evening, while the sky was bruised purple with sunset, we sat on her rooftop, the wind cold but comforting. She leaned her head on my shoulder, and I felt her body tremble slightly. I didn't ask why. I simply held her closer, hoping she would feel safe. And she did, because minutes later, her voice broke through the silence, soft but heavy. She told me about her past, about the people she trusted who turned away when she needed them the most, about the heartbreaks that left her believing she wasn't worth loving, and about a recent painful loss she had been hiding like an old wound that refused to heal. She said she was scared to attach, scared to hope, scared to believe that good things could last. That night changed everything. I realized her silence wasn't rejection, it was survival. Her hesitation wasn't distance, it was protection. The world had taught her to run before she got hurt, but I wanted to teach her that some people don't leave, that some promises can be kept even if they were made as a joke. So I stayed through her doubts, through her fears, through her nights of breaking down quietly so she wouldn't disturb anyone. I stayed through my own insecurities, through moments I wondered if she would ever let me fully in, through days when her love felt like it was there but locked behind a door I didn't have the key to. Slowly, the walls she built started to crack, not because I forced them to, but because she finally felt someone would still be there even after seeing the cracks. But life had another twist waiting. As our connection deepened and the possibility of something real seemed within reach, Ayla received news that shook both of us. Her health had been declining slowly, something she had ignored for months because she didn't want sympathy, and the diagnosis she finally received wasn't just alarming, it demanded immediate treatment, difficult choices, and emotional strength she didn't believe she had. I remember the fear in her eyes, the way she apologized for being a burden, the way she told me I didn't have to stay. She didn't want me trapped in a story filled with pain, but love isn't measured by the ease of days, it's measured by who we choose to stand beside when everything becomes difficult. So I held her hands, trembling but determined, and told her I wasn't going anywhere. The promise I joked about on our first day, the marriage joke she had taken seriously, I meant it now, deeply and sincerely. The months that followed were a storm of hospital visits, sleepless nights, medical challenges, and emotional exhaustion. But they were also filled with moments of unexpected beauty, her tiny smiles, the way she held onto my shirt when she was scared, the whispered thank yous she gave me whenever she felt strong enough to talk. I realized that love doesn't always look like grand gestures, sometimes it's just being there when the world feels unbearable. Her condition slowly began to improve. Not perfectly, not magically, but steadily enough that hope found space between the cracks of our fears. And one afternoon, while she sat by the window watching sunlight spill across the floor, she looked at me with the same soft gaze she had the day we met and said something I will never forget. She told me she wanted to live, not just survive, and she wanted to live with me. That was the moment everything changed. Months later, when she regained her strength, when her laughter returned like a familiar song, when her heart finally allowed itself to trust again, I took her back to the same cafe where our story began. There, without making a joke this time, without hiding behind humor, I asked her if she would marry me, not on a first date, not as a tease, but as a promise for a lifetime. Her answer wasn't dramatic or loud. It was simple, warm, and filled with the softness that made me fall for her in the first place. She said she had been waiting for me to keep that promise ever since the day I made it, and in that moment, surrounded by memories, pain, healing, and hope, I realized that life doesn't give us perfect stories. It gives us real ones, messy, complicated, heartbreaking, beautiful. It gives us people who break and rebuild, who fear and hope, who leave and return. It gives us a chance to love in the most imperfect yet unforgettable ways. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to channel name so more emotional stories can reach the world. Before the story ends, please drop a comment sharing the most touching moment for you. Your words matter more than